Welcome back, adventurers. I'm your host, R.R. Slugger, and today we trek deeper into China with Orient Expedition Set 7416, Emperor's Ship. Sam Sinister is at it again, and this time he's enlisted the help of Emperor Chang Wu's forces. Surely this time he cannot lose. Surely. So, remember that big disclaimer I included when we started our expedition into China? Well, I put it at the start of our journey to help set the stage for what was to come. If you haven't seen it yet, you really should go back and watch it before proceeding. Otherwise, what I talk about next isn't going to make a lot of sense. Alright, so the set also comes with a pair of Chinese soldiers, and oh boy, is there a lot to unpack here. We'll start with the obvious. To my knowledge, this was the first time LEGO had attempted to depict an explicitly Chinese face, and, it's not great. Look, there's a lot of really awesome stuff about this set, and we'll get to it eventually, but we've got to talk about this. Featuring a pair of slanted eyes and gaunt cheeks, this face print design is pretty much a set of buck teeth away from the full-blown stereotype. In fact, it looks more like the Chinese caricatures found in anti-immigrant propaganda of the late 19th century than it does the actual people it tries to depict. Now, like I've said before, this is a toy, and a toy shouldn't have to carry the weight of 100% historically accurate depictions of events and cultures. With that being said, though, a toy should also strive not to propagate stereotypes founded in racism. I shouldn't even have to say that. While the Orient Expedition has been pretty solid at respecting the cultures it attempts to represent up until now, unfortunately that positive trend ends here. The way the Orient Expedition chooses to portray the people of China in the 1920s is inaccurate and unkind, and I think that's sadly an understatement. It goes so much deeper than just the face print, however. Let's take a look at the rest of this outfit, starting with the conical helmet. This 3x3 dish piece made its debut in 2003, and we actually saw it put to good use previously in the Scorpion Palace. Here, it seems to represent some kind of helmet with insignia. When I was a kid, I took this at face value. I just trusted that this was a real thing and Chinese soldiers of this era had helmets like this. But now, as an adult going back through the Orient Expedition, I've had to question my assumptions. Is this actually based on something in the real world, or is it a complete fabrication? Well, I think it is based on something in the real world, but we'll get to that shortly. First, let me take you down the wonderful rabbit hole of militarysunhelmets.com. I love stumbling upon obscure niche websites like this, and this one was certainly helpful in filling in some possible history behind this helmet design. Because of the heat surrounding the fighting conditions, sun helmets were a common sight on eastern battlefields and have seen use through the centuries. In addition to providing protection from weapons, helmets like these also protect against the sun, a silent killer from above. However, in all instances I could find, Chinese sun helmets were woven, not metallic. This makes a lot of sense, as wearing a metal bowl on your head that stretched out past your shoulders would be pretty impractical. Not to mention that the primary reason for even donning a sun helmet was to block the sun, and bamboo is just as effective and significantly lighter. The set designers of Orient Expedition even went out of their way to show that these helmets were metallic and not woven, by including these plate marks with what look like rivets. Maybe the print was originally designed to be a shield, but then some joker popped it onto the minifigure's head, and they ran with it? It's pretty ridiculous. I was able to find something that looks similar, though. This is a Jingasa helmet from the late Edo period. Yes, this is Japanese, not Chinese. It turns out some samurai and ashigaru used metallic conical helmets within 19th century Japan. The closest Chinese equivalent I could find was this helmet with sun insignia, but this is actually a British design worn by Chinese forces in World War II, so we're way out in the weeds here. It's possible I missed a more accurate, truly authentic source for this helmet design, but I think there's another scenario that's just far more likely. I think the set designers took the traditional rice-picking hats worn by Chinese farmers and just decided to make a helmet out of them. Wow, that's not a good look, LEGO. I hope I don't sound like I'm giving the set designers too much of a hard time with this one, though. In the past, I've been happy to provide them the benefit of the doubt when it came to more questionable ties to the real-world cultures they were trying to represent. However, I think this time it really is as simple as rice hat equals rice helmet. It's entirely possible that I did more research into the historicity and utilization of conical helmets in making this video than the set designers did in making this set. That's certainly not a condemnation of the folks responsible here, but it is useful to acknowledge when they're on the money and when they're off the mark. I know we've spent a long time talking about the helmet, so let's briefly talk about the torso design as well. This one actually appears to be quite the accurate depiction of Chinese battle dress, complete with shoulder pauldrons and center crest. The problem here is that this type of attire would have been worn by soldiers in the 1820s, not the 1920s. This brings us to the core issue plaguing this leg of the Orient expedition. China is simply depicted as being far too obsolete compared to the adventurers who visit it. Remember, the Orient expedition is supposed to take place in 1925. Even if we fudge the date a bit and try to set things closer to the other dates we've been given for the adventurers in the past, 1910 and 1922, seeing the Chinese soldiers armed with crossbows and catapults is utterly laughable. This is what the Chinese military looked like in 1910. The myth of Western saviorism is unfortunately alive and well within this leg of the Orient expedition. We're going to continue to see the Chinese depicted in a sort of time bubble set 100 years prior to the date established in the setting. Here's another example. One of the soldiers included is armed with a rifle, but you'll notice how they went out of their way to show that it was a more primitive design by using the old Pirates-era flintlock mold rather than the one used by the Europeans. This, of course, is completely counterfactual, as the Chinese military of the era was armed with weapons like the Hengyang 88 bolt-action rifle. By the way, that 88 stands for 1888, 37 years before the events of the Orient expedition. While it's true that the widespread adoption of contemporary firearms took much of the 1920s for the Chinese to achieve, these are soldiers of the Emperor's command we're talking about here today. It's completely unbelievable that the soldiers we see in Orient Expedition wouldn't have the latest and greatest armaments at their disposal. The Chinese invented gunpowder, for crying out loud. I think it's more than a little insulting to depict them as being so incredibly backwards in the Orient Expedition. So I wish I could say that's the end of it, but these anachronisms are unfortunately going to keep popping up as we look at the final sets in this series. I won't spend nearly as much time dissecting each one, but I'm also going to continue to point them out when I see them. As I've said before, I'm approaching this series as a learner, not an expert, and I'm assuming many others are doing the same. If I uncover something during my study that contradicts an element depicted in this theme, then I think it's valuable to point it out so others can learn from that as well. I hope you agree. With the minifigures finally out of the way, let's look at the rest of this junk. And I mean that endearingly. The main model we see here brilliantly depicts a Chinese zhong, more commonly referred to as a junk in modern parlance. Despite the name, this build is the furthest thing from. With a sweeping elegance to the design, the Emperor's ship conveys a uniquely Eastern majesty, all while using less than 200 pieces. The striking color palette that we've grown accustomed to on this leg of the expedition is used to great effect here. The tan, black, and red components of the hull are all complemented beautifully with brown and gray accents. There are a ton of details that help link the toy we see before us to the source material that likely inspired it. To start with, this fabric lug sail retains the wing-like shape of a typical Chinese square sail design. The decorative dragon emblazoned across it helps remind the viewer whose empire they're sailing within. As you can imagine, this element is set exclusive, no surprise there. On the bow of the vessel, we can see a clever reuse of a mold originally intended to be horse armor. Here it serves as the figurehead of the ship, and continues the draconic motif. The part itself is making its final appearance within the Orient expedition, though we'll see it one more time when we get to the Dragon Fortress. Between the bow and the mast, we have a pair of mounted crossbows on a rotating turret. I already discussed why such a feature would be comically antiquated on a supposed military vessel of this era, but if we're really trying to give the set designers the benefit of the doubt, maybe these are supposed to be harpoons for whaling or boarding actions. We'll just have to ignore the Chinese soldier with a quiver of arrows on his back then. We had more believable contraptions strapped to the roof of an abandoned mine shaft in Wild West. It's a mystery to me why these Chinese soldiers weren't offered the same courtesy. The deck of the ship is constructed using a tan trapdoor piece that spent its entire existence exclusive to the Adventurer's theme. This set would mark its last hurrah, and I think it's actually one of my favorite uses for the element in general. The hatch can be lifted up to reveal 2 barrels in the hold below. If we crack them open, we can find a whopping 4 gemstones, one of each color. This is a huge plunder, so these Chinese mariners better take care to protect it. A rifle is mounted nearby to assist in this endeavor. Towards the stern, we have the ship's wheel, set exclusive in the old brown color. This wheel would operate the rudder down below, which features a rare and retiring element in this red ratcheting hinge brick. Actually, something I learned while making this video is that rear-mounted rudders found themselves on junks hundreds of years before European adoption. Most of the Western world was still using steerboards mounted on the right-hand side of a vessel. It's nice to see this Eastern innovation accurately depicted here. The part that I don't really understand is the purpose of these oars. They're actually mounted in a pretty typical steerboard position themselves, but as previously mentioned, the central rudder would make such a feature obsolete. Maybe they're included for redundancy's sake. Maybe they're included for rowing in calm waters. Regardless, barring some leftover stock that snuck its way into a Viking set in 2005, these oars are set exclusive to the Emperor's ship. We had a pretty rough start with the minifigures this episode, but the main model really redeems this set in my eyes. Still, we're not done here. Let's take a look at the back of the box. The first alternate build depicts a cargo ship with dock side build. I think this division of available resources helps set it apart from the main model in a satisfying way. There are only so many ways to build a boat when using the same assortment of pieces, but this alternate build does its best to be different. I actually built and photographed this model 2 separate times because I discovered a number of errors in my original assessment of the build. Turns out there's a rare second angle to work with on this one, and it's sitting right next to the photo I was originally working with on the back of the box. Oops. Let this be a lesson not to fall victim to tunnel vision when reverse engineering alt builds. The second alternate build brings us a guarded port of entry and a rowboat side build. The boat is pretty meager, but it does put those oars to good use. Its shape and design actually reminds me a lot of the mountain sleigh from Tibet. The sentry at the top of the harbor gate has a pair of mounted crossbows to defend his position. The pier along the side has room for storing cargo and other supplies. I appreciate how these alternate builds try to shake things up, and I think both are worthy of your time. With that being said though, I think the main model simply steals the show. Of the 3 large transport sets within Orient Expedition, this one is my favorite. Like the others, it grants us a unique look at both the setting and transportation methods of the time, something that Adventurers is well known for. Unlike the other transport sets though, this set only contains 3 cards for the Orient Expedition board game, rather than the typical 5 we've seen in previous entries. Let's take a quick look at them here. The first is the rifle that we spoke about earlier. Just like the one found in Tibet, this card grants the wielder +4 to their strength rolls, making it one of the strongest weapons in the game. It might be antiquated, but that doesn't mean it's not deadly. Watch out. The second card is the Sextant, useful for naval navigation. I'm not sure how functional such an item would be while running around the game board, but the card insists that using it in this manner would grant the user +2 to their speed rolls. The Sextant might be most valuable though when looking at our last card, the Chinese Junk. Just like all transports before it, the junk can be operated in-game to travel much quicker, and the sextant itself is the bypass item, allowing you to avoid the challenge thresholds of commandeering this vessel. It's odd that we don't receive the full 5 cards we've come to expect at this point, but believe me, the Dragon Fortress will more than make up for any shortcomings here. I hope you'll join me for the grand finale. I've been your host, R.R. Slugger, and I'll see you next time for another adventure.